Welcome back to Man versus Machine. Bradley Stalder with you. Wyatt is back for round two. I didn't scare him off from round one last week. Welcome back to Man versus Machine, Wyatt.
Happy to be here. Ready to talk about some wide receivers.
Yeah, last week we agreed on a lot of running back targets and fades, but Wyatt, I have a feeling that we're going to get a little more heated in the Man versus Machine debate streets here in tonight's episode. That's just the feeling, the vibes I'm getting, the eye rolls, the beard curls I can see getting in there. It's exciting when we get to debate a little bit on these wide receivers targets and fades. The reality is that we'll even take a step back, like from a weekly perspective. I think wide receiver is the hardest. Well, tight ends is tough because of the touchdown dependency, but wide receiver, I think, is very difficult to nail down in a week to week, like ranking. Like I would say of all the rankings, quarterback is probably the easiest. Tight end, if you can get the touchdowns right, that's pretty good. Running back, we can predict volume pretty well, and if they fall in the end zone or not, okay. But wide receiver seems to be the most elusive in the years that I've been doing these rankings, and so the tough thing is, yes, like week to week, we want spike weeks, but we also see for the entirety of the season, wide receivers, they're also tough to pin down season long. So why, before we get into your targets and fades, how do you approach the wide receiver position, from a rankings perspective?
It's an interesting point you make, and I do think it's actually pretty true. As you say, like it's harder to predict the volume for a lot of the wide receivers outside the elite. The elites are going to get their volume, and then after that, it can be hard week to week to predict. And that's honestly part of the reason why I tend to be a zero RB or hero RB drafter is I like to load up on my wide receivers, get those elite talents, because I think I'm much better being able to predict some of those later round running backs who I could feel comfortable putting in my lineups. But yeah, drafting wide receivers, trying to project them, it's talent, role, fit on the team, what's around them, what are the possibilities of targets condensing to them or around them based on the players around them. Are they surrounded by players who are legit competition, or are they surrounded by players who are maybe fake competition, and you could see them failing and having to rely on this other wide receiver more? A lot of things to consider.
Absolutely, lots to consider, but you also have some wide receivers that, after all things considered, you are targeting. So lead us off, Wyatt, with your first wide receiver target for the night.
The first one's going to be Jaylen Waddle, who's coming off a terrible season, straight up. Gotta say what's real here. But a lot of terrible stuff happened for the Dolphins last year. Tyreek Hill as well also had a really bad year. Some of that's due to the offensive line. Some of that's due to Tua's injury, And I really just want to bet on the talent that I think we know Waddle has that maybe didn't get to be seen as much last year, but I still believe in Waddle a lot. I believe that the Dolphins can get back on track a little bit. And more importantly, I don't know if we're going to get much out of Tyreek Hill anytime soon or anymore. And I'll talk about that more later on. That was a little teaser there. But if Tyreek Hill is on the downside of his career, that could mean very big things for Waddle. So I kind of want to play into that possible variance and possible ceiling for Waddle. Maybe he gets back into being the main target earner in the offense. And if that's the case, his price is really attractive.
Wyatt, if in doing projections and going through these discussions, one of the key takeaways for me is what goes up must come down, and inverse as well. So when we were talking even last week about the Miami Dolphins and both of us fading the running backs, that means that some of more valuable touches have to go other places. And if you're already putting in Tyreek Hill into the fade bucket, there's somewhere where those targets have to go. And The other component that we're all monitoring this week is the Jonnu Smith trade news. Like, what could that look like? Because we saw Smith out target Waddle last year, and he became a focal part of that offense. And Waddle, we've seen have 25% target shares on a Dolphins team. So this is a player that, yeah, I agree with you. He came off a terrible season last year, bad target share, 16.6%, but there's hope for a bounce back. That's what Wyatt is telling us. He's time to target Jaylen Waddle, whose ADP is wide receiver 32 on Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah, at this price, it's one that I want to be attacking.
All right, well, I'll share one of my targets, and this is a player that I don't care about the narratives. This is a too talented of a player. DJ Moore is one of my targets. He is a 23 to 25% target guy, now with a coaching upgrade, with a former number 1 overall quarterback. The offensive line is beefed up. This is he'll finally put it together. And last year, the offense was just terrible, and DJ Moore was still the wide receiver 1. There was a lot of meat left on the bone. I think that was true for a lot of the Chicago Bears wide receivers. However, DJ Moore has been the alpha. Not concerned about Loveland, not concerned about Roman Dunze cutting into that alpha type, that huge target share. There's still room for them to exist, but with DJ Moore just getting manufactured touches, he's a player that's been good for a long time, and now you enter Ben Johnson as the coach. Look, I'm here for that. I'm not overly worried about Rolls or Luther Burden or, anyone else. He's going to be the first dog to eat of the wide receivers, and I want him as a target. The projections for me, I'm very aggressive on DJ Moore in the projections, and he is ahead of AJ Brown, ahead of Mike Evans, ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown in the projections. So I'm here for DJ Moore because right now he's 30th overall. I'm approximately. Look, I'm here for drafting round 3, even in round 4, DJ Moore.
The projection is very aggressive. I don't know if I'm quite there, but I am a fan of DJ Moore, and I'm definitely above market on him for this year. So I am with you still, even though I think the projection's a little aggressive. Okay, but yeah, I mean, like everybody who's not interested in DJ Moore, the argument seems to be that he had some bad body language. They draft Luther Burden, who everyone assumes will be their starting slot wide receiver, and Ben Johnson is going to turn him into his new Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that's a lot of assumptions when Occam's razor would tell you that DJ Moore is the best wide receiver on this team, and Ben Johnson's going to feature him because he's going to feature his best players. Right. And it's really kind of that simple for me. Like I get that people are worried just because of maybe they think that DJ Moore is not actually part of the future for Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson didn't draft him, didn't bring him in, that kind of thing. But there's nothing right now that's telling us that anybody is more talented than him or could really even approaches his talent level. I mean, DJ Moore, for years, we've been saying is like one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's just a victim of circumstance. This one I don't get where the hate's coming from. I mean, he's been falling. He's kind of settled now in ADP, but I like the ADP.
Yeah, he's wide receiver 23 and now actually 41 overall on Underdog.
Yeah.
So, forgetting the wide receiver 1 on that type of offense where like the downside is built into that ADP. That's how I'm viewing it. So I want lots of DJ Moore this year. He's now going in around 4. Like that allows for a little bit of creativity in your builds. You want an elite tight end, and an elite quarterback in the first 4 rounds. DJ Moore, a build allows you to do that.
Yeah.
All right, Wyatt, hit us with your next wide receiver target.
Tetairoa McMillan, who I've been banging the drum for a long time now. Really good player. Slots right in as their X wide receiver starting from day 1. And I think he could see 150 targets as a rookie. And I don't think that should be a surprise. It's an aggressive prediction. I think it's on the top end of his range of outcomes, but it is in the range. And I think it's a realistic possibility for him. We saw this Bryce Young resurgence in the back half of 2024. I thought it was pretty real. I thought he looked like the college quarterback that we liked coming into the NFL. So I believe in that. I don't think there's anybody on the team that can really touch his opportunities. Like no one's taking from T-Mac. And I think he's really good. I think he's great after the catch, great in contested situations, great in the short intermediate. Yeah, he's not going to take the top off of a defense, but honestly, I don't care. Like you shouldn't care. He's kind of in this Drake London type of mold, which is fine. I think he's going to earn a bunch of targets in the short intermediate, coming across the field through the middle, can play after the catch really well. Love the talent. Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, there's no real competition for targets. You have a washed-up Adam Thielen. Okay, maybe he's not washed, but he's very old.
It's a fair thing to say.
Look, I thought he was washed 2 years ago, which is why I did not draft Adam Thielen, and it bit me in the rear end because he was playing poorly in his last year in Minnesota. Then he gets a resurgence in Carolina and played well enough when he was healthy last year. But I agree with you. The Bryce Young in the second half of the season is what we wanted to see, both from like a fantasy points perspective, but also from a filled perspective. He just looked better. He didn't look defeated and broken. And this is now year 2 of Dave Canales. I was buying big into Bryce Young last year, and I think that the discounts are now evaporated. People have seen it now. Bryce Young, they've built around him now with Tetairoa McMillan as a top draft pick. He's going to get the targets. And it's what Jalen Coker, Xavier Legette, like those guys, it's clearly from a talent perspective, significantly lower. Coker, undrafted free agent, like the story, but let's not talk ourselves too much into, reasons why Tetairoa McMillan would fail. I think he's a good target.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll get another target here. And that would be, wow.
Which way are you going to go?
The internet is not loading. Detroit wide receiver, Jameson Williams. Now, JMO is a player that, like, we have to understand his story a little bit. He was a first-round draft pick coming out of college that had a torn ACL. And one of the lessons I've learned over the years is if a player tears his ACL in college, he's essentially a wash that first year he's coming back, because the rehab is just not the same compared to what they do in the NFL. It's just from an objective perspective, and from also what we've seen play out, whether it's Jameson Williams, whether it's Jonathan Brooks, whenever you tear your ACL, like, it's essentially a wash that first year for whatever reason. And so the next year we see him climbing a little bit more, and then you finally see a bit of more of a breakout. Like, he was 40th overall approximately in best ball value rating last year, and now he's going at about 40th overall now. Amon-Ra St. Brown has kind of taken a step back in terms of explosive plays. He operates mostly out of the slot. It's close to the line of scrimmage, but JMO is the big play waiting to happen. And this team all offseason has been pounding the drum for a JMO breakout. And that's what was happening last year. There was a lot of positive coach speak coming out of Detroit. And looking at what the coach speak is saying this year, like compared to last year, very similar. We saw that same ascension. So without significant additions to the wide receiver core, yes, Isaac Tesla was a 3rd round wide receiver. He's more of that replacement of a Josh Reynolds or a Khalif Raymond type, a good player, a Hillsdale product. Shout out to Hillsdale College. But the reality is look, JMO is way more explosive than Amon-Ra, even though Amon-Ra he's certainly excellent player. But in terms of what Amon-Ra brought to the table, I'm talking later about why I'm fading Amon-Ra. Sorry, everyone. JMO, what goes up must come down, as Amon-Ra has taken slow steps back in this offense over the last couple years. I want to see a JMO elevation, and the opportunity will continue to ascend. So I'm here for the big explosion of Jameson Williams, a Will Fuller type. Hopefully he doesn't disappear from a mysterious thumb injury.
This is where we're going to have our first disagreement.
Yes.
We're going to disagree about the lines in general, it sounds like. I have to admit that number one, I was wrong about Jameson Williams because I was someone who was kind of fading him a bit. And I started to get in on the train like a little bit late last offseason because the drumbeat was just like nonstop about the coaching staff being, saying how much he was improving and everything. And, obviously that was very true based on his 2024 season. But Jameson Williams threads a very thin needle. He is hyper efficient. And if he doesn't have that hyper efficiency, those points per game, we could see those wane a little bit. I mean, he only had one game last year with more than 5 catches. So like he really has to rely on those big plays. Now, if we're going to talk about strictly best ball, I think his ADP makes some sense. I think he's still being drafted kind of close to his ceiling, but that makes sense. Redraft, I think it's a lot tougher for me there. And if I'm going to be drafting someone like Jameson Williams, I think you almost have to have a plan in place because you have to know that you have to live with some volatility in your lineup with Jameson Williams. I mean, there's no issue with that. I play with volatility plenty. You make the plan, right?
Sure.
You do it for the week winning weeks that he can have. But he's definitely not someone I'm targeting much, like in the general area that he's getting drafted in. Like he goes right next to like Devonta Smith on Underdog. Like I'm going to take Devonta Smith every time over him personally. He also has to compete with like this pocket of running backs that I really like. So his ADP just ends up in this place where like I'm not super interested. I don't hate Jameson Williams, but his profile I don't love at the cost personally.
That's fair. I appreciate the distinction between best ball and redraft. That's totally logical. I want the spike weeks, the 24 points, the 22 points, the 26 points, 24 and a half points again. Like those are major week winning type of plays that you get out of your flex because he's not being drafted, in the first 3 rounds. He's a round 4 or 5 turn guy. And even in redraft, maybe a little bit later because people know he's more of a best ball play. So I agree with you. You do have to have a little bit of a plan if you're going in redraft, but I have the best ball lens that does affect my targets here. Still, big play waiting to happen. And this is an offense that I think will take a step back overall. Like that's how I'm approaching the Lions. But if they're taking a step back overall and they're still like trying to be competitive, they're going to continue to get the ball in the hands of Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams if they need a big play to happen. And yes, he had one game last year where he had more than 5 catches. So I hear you. The volume is one that is not there, but the touchdowns and the explosiveness are so tantalizing that my best ball brain just can't say no.
Understandable.
All right, Wyatt, hit us with your next one.
Jerry Jeudy. This is a bet.
I was so pissed that you picked this guy because I wanted him. I wanted him so bad. Right.
I thought you were going to curse me there for a different reason.
No.
But yeah, it's just I don't think his range of outcomes is fully represented in the cost that he has right now. I know it's really easy for everybody to look at last year and say that he was like a Jameson Winston merchant, and absolutely he had a lot of big games with Jameis Winston, had a lot of production with him, but he was absolutely the number 1 wide receiver for the Browns and earned a lot of volume no matter who's quarterback. I think took a step up in play level just in general, like from what we saw with him from Denver. I think the Browns found the best way to utilize him. They brought down his slot snaps a little bit from where it was with Denver. They started using him on a lot of like crossing routes, just trying to like get the ball in his hands on the move, utilize his speed a little bit. And I think, like I said, I think he just generally just took a step up in his play level. And people are worried about the quarterback situation for the Browns. I'm worried about the quarterback situation for the Browns. I think it's terrible, right? But the one thing that can make up for that, and it's something we talked about last week when we talked about Quinshon Judkins, is that the Browns have a very high pace of play under Kevin Stefanski. They run a lot of plays, and that creates more opportunities for fantasy points. And this is going to be a bad team. They're probably going to be in catch-up mode a lot. They're probably going to have to pass a lot. Doesn't matter who their QB is. They're going to sit back and drop and back and pass. It didn't even matter when they had Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was literally the worst quarterback in football last year. They kept dropping back and passing, And Jerry Jeudy was on the receiving end of those. They weren't always efficient, but he's getting enough volume to still be good with it. This is a dude who was top 10 in receiving yards last year in the entire NFL. I believe it was actually 6th in the NFL in receiving yards last year. And he's just going way too late for that. I mean, he's going now, end of the 6th round on underdog.
68 overall.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy price to buy into for me.
Oh, I'm just so upset that you picked it before I picked Jeudy. You mentioned the slot snaps. That was a big shift. You mentioned the quarterback play. He seemed like it didn't matter. And you hit on all the points for Jeudy. He's one of my most drafted wide receivers, just extremely mispriced at wide receiver 39. This is the way. He's the wide receiver 1. He got a 25% target share last year. We're here for the Jerry Jeudy. I'm here for George Pickens. I think the trade worked. This is best case scenario for George Pickens. He goes from a team that was one of the slowest in pace of play, one of the highest rush rate teams in terms of offense, and now he goes to a Dallas team where Dak Prescott has sustained wide receivers. And yes, he's hyper targeted CD Lamb in the past, but they've been looking for an answer at wide receiver too, whether it's Tolbert or Cooks or whoever else. Someone step up. Ryan Flournoy, please, come on, buddy. And so finally you get a player who has been pretty consistently a 20 to 22% target share guy. Like, he's not an alpha. He's clearly not the number one guy and shouldn't have been on most teams, but he's a really quality wide receiver 2 on a team, and he makes circus catches. He has that dog in him. Sometimes he's not the leader of the group, and he doesn't have to be for Dallas. So I think the fit is good. The offense is going to be better for him. He's still going to get his 1,000 yards. I think this was a major upgrade for him. And I don't think the ADP has quite caught up to George Pickens yet. Yes, there's been positive shifts, but I don't think it's gotten there enough. And I'm still willing to take Pickens as I have him as about a top 20 wide receiver right now in the projections.
Before he was traded, if you could pick a landing spot for him, Dallas had to have been at the top of the list, or at least near there. He's a perfect fit for what they needed and what he probably needed, because I think you're right. Like, I do think that he is not a number one wide receiver completely. I think he has the talent to be a number one wide receiver in the NFL, like a proper alpha for somebody, but I think he gets in his own way a little bit too much to really be that reliable. But as a high-powered number 2 to CeeDee Lamb makes perfect sense. I think his ADP now it's come up since he got traded, is appropriate for his range of outcomes. I mean, he is the number 2, so that is part of it. We've seen plenty of number 2s, land in the top 24 wide receivers, though. So like that's not crazy to predict. He should be efficient with Dak. I would think he would be. I expect this team to pass a lot because the running backs are trash. So I think they're going to have to. So right. There should be plenty of volume to go out to him. And yeah, I think he's going to play well. He's going to be probably a little bit volatile, a little bit Jameson Williams-y, I would say. So you have to know you're going in with that, but he's also cheaper than Jameson Williams. And I think that their range of outcomes are kind of similar.
Love it. All right. Hit us with another one here, Wyatt. Wide receiver target.
Yeah, I feel like we're tag teaming on these next players because we're going to be talking about the same team. But I picked Jack Bech. Throughout the process coming into the NFL draft, I'll be honest. Like I don't follow college football during the season. I don't have the time, so I kind of have to do my crash course when the NFL season ends and start learning about the prospects. And you look at like Jack Bech's profile just at the beginning, and you're like, why is this person like being predicted to be drafted on day 2? Like the statistical profile does not look that impressive. He had 1 good year as a senior for TCU. Who's this guy? And then you start to dig in, you watch the film, you start to read what some people who really know what they're doing when it comes to watching film are saying about him. You start to get really excited because this is a guy who can play inside and out. He's really good off the line, really good after the catch. His hands are incredible. Like, he doesn't drop anything. Very sure-handed, good in contested catch situations. He can do everything. He's also one of these players who he's going to do all the little things out on the field. You can be that power slot who's also like chipping on defensive ends, that kind of thing. He even played a little bit of tight end for LSU. You know, everyone knows the stat of how when he was a freshman at LSU, he had more receptions than Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and all these other people there, which is funny. But yeah, it's just, I think this is a really good player, really got really good draft capital in a spot that I think is actually pretty exciting, because I'm excited for the Raiders in 2025. I think I like what they did. Geno Smith is a legit good QB. I expect this to be a high-paced offense, because that's what Chip Kelly has done whenever he's been in the NFL. And this is a team that wants to win and wants to put up some offense. I'm really excited for Jack Bech in his rookie year, and the price is pretty good.
Price is good. The opportunity is good. The wide receiver 2 spot is wide open, and Bech has the draft capital to support that. So the pathway exists for Bech to make it happen. And I think that it'll tie well into my next target, which I think this is the new Tyler Lockett-ish in Jakobi Meyers.
He has been
perennially underrated, always drafted late, very consistent. And this is a player, so his ADP is wide receiver 40 right now. Jakobi Meyers hasn't finished as outside the top 40 of wide receivers since 2020. Since 2020. Last year it was wide receiver 20 in fantasy points per game. What did the Raiders do different this offseason? Oh, they got a major quarterback upgrade. They got a major offensive coordinator upgrade. They got a head coach upgrade. They added a second round wide receiver. No disrespect to Bech, but like it wasn't like they drafted Tetairoa McMillan. Like they got a massive running back upgrade. So this is a team that got Meyers last year, 129 targets in 15 games, over 1,000 receiving yards. He's been a top 30 wide receiver each of the last 3 years. And now you've got competent quarterback play, competent coaching, a great, like the running back is going to keep, Genty's going to keep the ball moving. So yeah, I'm here for Jakobi Meyers, and you're also going to get some shootouts in this division. Like they needed to upgrade the offense. Yeah, Jakobi Meyers, I'm still in, especially at his price. He's just massively mispriced yet again, and it's the Raiders. I think the anti-Raiders bias in people's minds here, Wyatt.
Yeah, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills with the Raiders. It's like everything got better for them, and people seem to want to fade like their players to some extent. Like even Brock Bowers, like I think is just generational wealth opportunity in a second round. He's falling now. I've seen him falling late second round. It's like everything got better for these players. Like I don't understand why. Like Jakobi Meyers, you can basically just like lock in 80 for 1,006 touchdowns at wide receiver 40. Yeah, sounds great. You know?
Yeah, like it is strongly within the range of outcomes that Meyers outproduces Pickens or JMO, like, and players that I like players that I think are good, but he's more consistent, and you now have the offense upgrade. So we're here for Meyers. Hit us with your last wide receiver target, Wyatt.
Yeah, we're gonna go late for this one. This is obviously for deep drafts, definitely an underdog, but Alec Ayomanor. I was a fan of him as a prospect, a little bit late to football, but big, athletic, downfield threat. His hands are kind of inconsistent, but good after the catch when he got the ball. And like I said, big threat at waiting to happen. And he originally had, projected day 2 draft capital, and then he falls to the 4th round with the Titans. Actually, the second wide receiver they drafted in the 4th round, which is a little bit interesting. But then it kind of comes out afterwards, and I think it's still kind of underreported that he had a knee injury pop up on his medical issue going into the draft. And that caused him to fall, more than likely, because everyone was predicting him to be a day 2 pick before that. In fact, he even got like round 2 buzz at a certain point. So I think that talent is still there. I think like I'm willing to believe that a big reason why he dropped was that medical issue, not the talent. And he falls into a situation where it's wide open for him. There's Calvin Ridley and then nothing. Like there's plenty of room for him to step up into a position and earn opportunity. He's getting some good reviews out of training camp right now, which is nice, at OTAs. That always has to be taken with a grain of salt. Maybe I'm just confirming some priors there, but it is what it is. But yeah, at the end of my draft, like if you're taking wide receiver, you want him to be taking wide receiver who has a legit path to opportunity, and he has it.
He most certainly has it, and he's a player that in the pre-draft process, you mentioned he was a day 2 projected wide receiver. He was my 3rd most drafted wide receiver, and I was not happy with the fact that he got the day 3 draft capital. But at least he lands in a place in Tennessee where he has the opportunity, and the pathway could exist. Like, it's just Ridley, and then what? Restrepo, maybe with the college connect. Like, there's not really much else. The pathway could be very easily for A.O. Manor to make his way into the starting lineup halfway through the season. By the end of the season, we could see some major spike weeks. And I agree with you. Like, and from a best ball perspective, these are the types of players that are super cheap to stack. Like, you get Cam Ward really late, you get Aiyuk really late. This is a player that you can really yes, he'll lead the team in touchdowns, or I'll drink a beer. Chuck, we appreciate it. Shout out to you, Chuck. We love it. We love to see it, and a great target given that he's so inexpensive. He was wide receiver 74 in the pre-draft best ball. Now he's wide receiver 88, so even cheaper now. Go get him. The last player, I gave you a late round wide receiver to target. I'm going to give you an early wide receiver to target. That's Lad McConkey. Again, I'm not moving off of McConkey because of Trey Harris. Quentin Johnson, Trey Harris, probably going to play mostly on the outside. And Lad McConkey's going to feast. Who's the tight end in Los Angeles? Tyler Conklin. Right? Like I love Conklin as a guy. He looks like a Viking, but Lad McConkey is still going to feast in the middle of the field. Justin Herbert, we saw over especially the last 3 quarters of the season, an increase of pass attempts. The passing percentage went up. Generally, Harbaugh trusted Herbert more. This was not just, I'm preserving JJ McCarthy, like he was preserving McCarthy in college. He was letting Herbert rip it near the end, and that's where we saw McConkey really step up, and that chemistry is even stronger. And now, like, this is the classic year 2 wide receiver massive jump, and he's being drafted in the middle of the 2nd round. We could see him pay off end of the 1st round, middle 1st round type of draft capital. So I'm here for Lad McConkey in 2025.
Yeah, this one's easy. I mean, Lad McConkey's extremely good as a rookie. I like your point about how they kind of picked up the passing rate there as the season went on, which is absolutely true and something that I expect to continue into 2025. He projected as a top 10 wide receiver for me. So I'm a fan for sure.
You have him top 10. I have him 3.
All right.
There we go.
DJ Moore, Lad McConkey. These projections are getting aggressive, buddy. We got to talk.
Let's go. We're here for it. All right. We're also here for the player profiler breakout finder. Take a listen.
Oh, the Breakout Finder is live. That's right. A lot of breakout models out there, but we started it all. The best and brightest minds coming up with the definitive breakout probabilities for running backs, wide receivers in this rookie class. It's $5 to download the wide receiver breakouts, the running back breakouts, but also proprietary stats available only on the Breakout Finder, including dynamic score for wide receivers, teammate score, level of competition. You can access the full stat database, plus many advanced metrics from Player Profiler, all there, right there on your phone, in the App Store, on Google Play. And that 2025 class is live.
I'm the machine!
Welcome back to Man vs. Machine. Bradley and Wyatt back at it, discussing wide receivers. We finished wide receiver targets. Now it's wide receiver fade time. It's the boo-hoos. It's the oh no. No clapping. No, it's a lot of upset people. They're not going to be happy with us, Wyatt. But hit us with your first wide receiver fade for the night.
Yeah, teased him earlier, but Tyreek Hill. I'm drafting like 0 Tyreek Hill at this point. Even in best ball, where you tend to want to get a little bit of exposure, even on players that you tend to fade, you want to get like I'm just not drafting Tyreek Hill. Last year, put the blame on whatever you want to put it on. Was it the wrist injury? Was it the offense? Was it the offensive line? Was it him slowing down? Which I think
officers who tackled him to the ground.
Yeah, maybe that ruined his entire season. Who knows? But I tend to believe that Tyreek Hill is starting to slow down. And for a player like Tyreek Hill, once he loses his speed, he really is going to start to lose his game. And the production fell just like dramatically so much last year from where he was that I think the end is soon. And that's the way it happens for players. It's not this gradual decline. Good players are good until they're not. And once we see that sign that they're done, normally they're done. There are some few exceptions, like Larry Fitzgerald is the hallmark of we thought he was dead and he wasn't dead. Adam Thielen a little bit like that too. But at his ADP, because his ADP is still high enough now. I mean, he's going beginning of third round normally. That's just too high a price for the possibility that like he's close to done, which I don't think he's done yet. But if we get anything close to what happened last year, you're going to be so disappointed that you drafted Tyreek Hill. I'm avoiding him.
Yikes. I'm not really booing. I agree with you. It's really hard to rank Tyreek Hill high and find the projection because you mentioned the speed, it slowed down. The target share was lower. I'm not sure if it was that the offense changed and therefore Tyreek Hill got hurt like fantasy wise, or if he was like actually broken and McDaniel was like, well, we need to find other options. Like we need to go to HN, we need to go to Jonnu. I'm not sure, chicken or the egg, whatever it was. Either way, there were lots of signals that is it going to be Tyreek Hill week this week? Is it going to be Tyreek Hill week that week? We were all waiting for, he's back now, and it just didn't happen. And these receivers who have major, they have one skill set that's major, whether it is big time speed, whether it is big time strength, or the contested catch ability. Once they're the one trick pony, once that trick goes away, they're done. And I agree with you, Tyreek. We could be looking at him, and he could be retired in a year. Like we could be talking about that right now, a year from now, June 4th, 2026. So, yikes! That is within the range of outcomes. I also teased out a fade earlier. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, this is an environmental one. You lose your coordinators. You lose. I don't know. There's uncertainty about how this team is going to operate. And being around the Lions, yes, they have a good offensive line, but Ragnow just retired. Like, they're going to have to replace that part of the offensive line. I have concerns organizationally. Amon-Ra is still going to be good. He's still going to get his 140 targets. I'm not saying that the target share isn't going to be there, but he was elevated the last couple of years through increased touchdowns. And I think that the team looked at that and said, we're also going to get the ball into the hands of Jahmyr Gibbs. We're going to get the ball in the hands of Jameson Williams, like more just athletic players. Not that Amon-Ra isn't, but in terms of like, if I need a big play, those are the two players that if I'm the Lions offensive coordinator, I'm going to give them the ball. So yes, Amon-Ra still a player that's very, very good, but he's being drafted, at the back end of the first round, when you're also having the opportunity to take a Brian Thomas. Maybe you can pair Amon-Ra with Ladd McConkey, but you have an opportunity to take some players at that 1-2 turn, and I'm concerned about a ceiling for Amon-Ra. Whereas, you get ceilings with a Thomas, with a few others that are going at that spot. So my concerns are organizationally, ceiling, and like maybe in redraft, he's more of a target, but absolutely in best ball, I'm letting other people take shots and deal with the floor.
So I'm actually gonna half agree with you here. I don't agree that like you should be worried about Amon-Ra's production. Like I'm not worried about that. I expect to get what we normally get from Amon-Ra, averaged out for what he's done for his career. But at the end of the first round, I'm always taking Brian Thomas ahead of him. I'm always going to take Ashton Genty ahead of him, Malik Neighbors ahead of him.
Right.
I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey ahead of him because if he's healthy, he represents the ceiling that unlike many do. And so I'm willing to make that bet on Christian McCaffrey. So is it you can fade him because there's just better players to pick at his draft position, so you end up just not getting him much? I can agree there. And I'll say, like, I'm not overweight on Amon-Ra, even though I'm not worried about his production, because I prefer those other players in that area.
Nico Collins as well. I like Nico Collins at that spot. So
that one's really close for me. I think Nico Collins has the higher ceiling for sure out of those two. But I do worry about some of the regression that the Texans had last year. I expect them to bounce back, but we'll see.
For sure. Wyatt, hit us with your next wide receiver fade.
Deebo Samuel, another one of these players who I think we saw the beginning of the end last year for him. And I know he was dealing with pneumonia last year, but it's not like outside of that period of time he was doing that well anyways. I mean, he had some games that were good, but I'm worried that the type of play that he has had over his time in the NFL is starting to catch up to him. And him going to Washington is honestly, I'll be real, it's a good spot for him to have gone. They needed a player like him. They had an opening in their slot for him, basically, or not necessarily in the slot, but in the short intermediate area of the field. It's a high-paced offense, which is good for him. But I'm not sure how much he has left. And he's not a player that I want to be relying on, especially not at his cost, especially not when you see the players he's going next to, like the aforementioned Jerry Jeudy. He's also going next to some really interesting running backs. He's going very close to Trevion Henderson, who I'm a big fan of. He's going next to James Conner, who I think is still the guy that you want in Arizona. He's going before Jakobi Meyers, which I prefer Jakobi Meyers straight up, So yeah, the where he's at, I can't get interested in it.
Yeah, he's wide receiver 38, and I have him projected at wide receiver 47. So lower. You mentioned Myers and Jawan Jennings should be significantly higher, and he's going very close there. Jerry Jeudy, very close there. There are definite targets in this pocket, just even from the wide receiver perspective. We're not even talking running backs. So you mentioned Henderson, Connor. I agree. They do need that wide receiver too. You could see a couple spike weeks from him, manufactured touches, but it's clearly McLaurin is the wide receiver. And the other part is there's a lot of plays pulled out of the offense for both the wide receivers and any manufactured rushes because of Jaden Daniels. He's going to get 20% or so of the rush attempts. Yeah. That's going to keep the ball out of the hands of Deebo or anyone else. So that's why I'm, a little bit lower on Deebo Samuel as well. So I hear you on that, Wyatt. Man and machine in lockstep on Deebo Samuel. I'm fading DK Metcalf. I'm fading him. Yes, you moved George Pickens out. That slightly helped. I don't know. I wasn't. I think this is, for the reasons why we were fading George Pickens before the trade. I think we're also fading DK Metcalf. Metcalf is just a little bit better of a George Pickens. That's how, again, I don't believe that DK Metcalf is a strong alpha number one. He has not consistently commanded a 25% target share. That's usually 24+% is usually my threshold for, is this guy commanding targets or just a very good player that gets targets? And DK is a very good player that can get targets. He's going to be the number one, and I think he is better than Pickens, but marginally. And so in a very low pace of play, in a run-heavy offense. Arthur Smith, we know that there's shenanigans in this offense for the wide receivers. Doesn't matter if it's Pickens or Metcalf or anyone else. And now there's rumblings about Jonnu Smith coming back to be reunited with Arthur Smith. The shenanigans can continue in Pittsburgh. And even if you add Aaron Rodgers to this mix, like best case scenario for Pittsburgh is they get Rodgers or Cousins. That's best case scenario for DK Metcalf. It is within the range of outcomes that they have to trot out Mason Rudolph, in week 1. That is non-zero at this point, June 4th, 2025. So DK Metcalf, I'm out. Let someone else deal with DK.
Yeah, you couldn't pay me to be drafting Mason Rudolph's wide receiver playing with Arthur Smith as their coach. Like, what are we doing here? I think your like first argument is honestly one of the best ones. Is like, we were fading George Pickens in this situation. Why are we going just buying to DK Metcalf? I agree. I think he's just a little bit better than Pickens, which hurts me to say because I've been a fan of DK Metcalf. I've been in on him more than not, for better or for worse. But this is not ideal. Even if they do get Cousins or Rodgers, like, doesn't inspire that much confidence. This is still Arthur Smith's offense. They're going to be slow paced. They're going to run a lot. Arthur Smith's offenses do not hyper target one player. So it doesn't even matter that he's the only guy in town to an extent. It just nothing sounds good here.
Nothing is good. But also tell us what's not good about Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, so coming back from a multi-ligament knee injury, he's normally not good for any player. And before he got that injury, he was not playing well for the 49ers. He got his contract, and I'm not saying that he lost motivation, but he did not look like Brandon Aiyuk that we saw in the past. Just straight up. Whatever was happening, it might have been because he held out for that contract and didn't get enough time on the practice field leading up to the season. In fact, I would probably guess that is what happened. But he's not going to have that practice this year either because he's dealing with some multi-leg knee injury. We don't know he's going to be coming back. I imagine he's more a second half of the season play. Like, I would not be surprised if he misses the entire first half of the season. And I'm not going to feel confident in playing him or relying on him in best ball when he comes back in this offense. And people can poo-poo on Juwan Jennings, but I've always felt like Juwan Jennings was a good player who just was behind other good players. And whenever he got the opportunity, it was good. Last year, he just happened to get more opportunity, so he got to show how good he was. I don't think he's going to, pace the same way he was pacing last year necessarily, but I think he's going to be a good player. We got Ricky Pearsall, their first-round pick from last year, who I imagine they want to be part of their offense. George Kittle, all these things, CMC. It's always a crowded offense, and when you're the piece of the crowded offense coming off a multi-ligament knee injury, even though you're really good, at least in the past you were really good, I just don't have a lot of confidence in Aiyuk, especially not where he's getting drafted. Late 70s about right now on Underdog, somewhere in there. Kind of varies.
It's fallen to 82 now, Wyatt.
Okay, yep.
Fallen to 82, but still.
Which is good, but he's got farther to go, because you're still in an area of the draft where these are players you're going to be relying on.
Right.
And I don't think you can rely on it.
Can't rely on it. My projections have two pieces to them. One is best ball value rating, which is a week-to-week stat, and the other is, of course, sum total of the season, half PPR points. And Aiyuk is my wide receiver 36 in best ball value rated projected, which fine, wide receiver 36. I was very low on him going into last season anyways, because of the reasons you mentioned, the amount of the mouths that you have to feed in the San Francisco offense. At least you move Deebo out, but now Juwan Jennings is actually ascending into a useful piece. But he's wide receiver 80 in projected overall points because of the other point you made. He's going to miss some time. Like, we do not expect Brandon Aiyuk to play at least for the first 4 weeks. And then if he's, slow played the rest of the way, second half, he could be a thing, maybe. But we've also seen Shanahan just doghouse people, like straight up Trey Sermon, Trey Lance, Dante Pettis, their rear ends. Even Brandon Aiyuk at one point was in the doghouse And you have to wonder if he gets put back in the doghouse. And it doesn't matter how much money, that is very much within the range of outcomes for a Brandon Aiyuk to just get shenaniganed. Yeah. I tried.
There's something there.
I tried. Anyways, all right. So enough about Roman Dunze is a player that I'm still very high on. DJ Moore. I've been very clear about that. Rome did some good things in year one, but Jalen Coker had a better best ball value rating. They're like Ray McLeod was the next spot below Roma Dunze last year in terms of total fantasy points. Like it was a bad year for Roma Dunze. And yes, we do see like next level jumps for players, but I ran the data and there was only about 5% of players from 2023 to 2024 who made the type of jump that we are projecting Rome to make. So it's not a zero, but if you are like aligning projected points to where ADP is, he's going to have to make such a massive jump as that player. And now you add Colson Loveland, you do add Luther Burden, you add like legitimate pieces, even if they're not going to eat all the way in, they're not going to take over. I think I'm still projecting Odunze as the wide receiver 2 on this team. But when we talk about like where his ceiling can get to, he not only has to outplay all those other players, but then for him to achieve more than, he's going as wide receiver 34. He needs to have a really good season. And that's hard to project when you have all those pieces together and the historical data to just not support seeing many of these types of jumps.
I'm with you on this one. Unlike DJ Moore, he does not have the history of production to tell us that, or for us to feel comfortable that he won't be highly affected by Luther Burden and Colson Loveland. Like you, I'm also still projecting him to be the wide receiver 2, be second in targets to DJ Moore. But I don't think he's like that far ahead of the rest of the field right now on that offense. So I don't feel confident in his cost.
You're also not confident in Cooper Kupp, Wyatt. Tell us about your fading of the new Seattle Seahawks wide receiver.
I think the biggest argument here is that like the moment the season ended, everyone knew the Rams were going to let him go. Like right away, the Rams were like, nah, we're good. That's the biggest argument you could make. The people in the building said, nah. So Cooper Kupp, I think, is another one of these players that we might have saw the end last year. We might have really saw the drop off for him. And him going to Seattle is very awkward. Like I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the Seattle offense is going to look like because their top 2 wide receivers are both mainly slot players. They're playing on offense with Clint Kubiak, who likes to use a fullback a lot. So, who's going to play outside? Who's going to be in the slot? It's very awkward to figure out. But he's definitely not head JSN. And I'm not sure how much he actually has left, how much opportunity he can get in this offense, what the opportunity looks like. He's going late 80s now on Underdog. It's a spot where it's just like, I don't know, like it's too expensive for somebody who could be done. I'm like completely fading Cooper Kupp as much as I can.
Yikes. I agree with you. When the Rams do something, they're an organization you trust. Yeah. Like the drafting of Puka Nacua was a major signal to me. Not only because Nacua was actually good in college, yes, small samples, but he was good in college, but also like the Rams, we trust that organization. They have secret data. They've got a secret algorithm and, I don't know what they do behind the scenes, but we do know that like there exists something that they do that's different that a lot of the league is now trying to copycat from not just player evaluations. Like Brad Holmes is from the Rams organization. Like you see the Rams getting the coaches or the the tree from the LA Rams over the last half decade has really influenced the NFL. And so if you have the original team making a move off of the player that they scouted and made the best wide receiver at one point in his career, best wide receiver in the NFL, yeah, it's time. And that the Seahawks also were not confident that they are a good organization either, that they signed Sam Darnold, they sign a redundant wide receiver. Like, there's questions about what they're doing. So I agree with you. Cooper Kupp, the price could be, you couldn't pay me, like it's easy in the projections to say, yeah, Cooper Kupp, we could slot him in for like 18% target share, but what if that becomes 8? What if it becomes 15? Even then, yikes. Another player that I'm fading, Keon Coleman. I wanted to see more last year, Wyatt, and I just didn't see it. And yes, the Bills didn't go out and draft another wide receiver, but the vibes on Keon Coleman just are so off, given the first season with the Bills. Like, he couldn't push Khalil Shakir for targets. He was wide receiver 55 in fantasy points per game and was mostly running as a deep threat. He finished as wide receiver 30 in explosive plays. Fine, he has a role, but are we going to see an elevation? I'm not convinced that we see Keon Coleman take the next steps. The target share was modest at 15%, and I just don't see a pathway for him to be more than, like, what ceiling is wide receiver 36. Like, I want more than that from a Josh Allen led offense. We've seen what Stephon Diggs could do in this offense, and it feels like it's just being hamstrung by a player who mostly just runs down the field. He was 8th among wide receivers in average target distance. Like, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's miscast in Buffalo. They drafted him. They said they were going to make him an X. That's exactly what they did. Seems like they're definitely doing that again this year because they just keep adding more players who can play the slot onto the team.
Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, they just keep bringing him in. And, he was a player that we knew needed refinement coming into the NFL because he got to football late. He was more of a basketball player than he was a football player. And he plays football like that, honestly. Like, he's still learning how to play the position. And I thought he needed to be a big slot coming into the NFL where he doesn't have to beat press coverage because he has trouble with that. But they keep saying that he's going to be their X. So it's hard to get excited about him. I mean, he's got really great athletic ability, and he's obviously a top tier athlete because of playing 2 sports at a high level like that in college. So it's obviously possible that he could become a good X wide receiver in the NFL, but I'm not confident it's going to happen, especially not at the cost that he's going at, which, around pick 100 or around there these days. It's just, I'm not interested.
107 now.
107. Good. Keep dropping. Maybe I'll get some if he continues to drop. I'll get more interested, but right now, no, thank you.
All right. Hit us with your last wide receiver fade for the night, Wyatt.
Yeah, so for both targets and fades, I tried to, work my way down some ADP and at least give one late player that I go either way on. And for my fade late, it's Jalen McMillan, who I think basically got squeezed out the moment that Emeka Egbuka was drafted to the Buccaneers. It's hard to imagine how he really sees any worthwhile volume without injury. Now, the argument to that is, well, Chris Godwin's coming off an injury and Mike Evans is old. So it's possible that they will need McMillan anyways. But he's not a player that I want to bet on, not where he's going. I realize, pick 150. That's still pretty late. So you can say that anybody's a target or a fade at that cost, and it's hard to have an argument against it. But my thing is, once you get into that area of drafts, you're going to be looking at some of the better handcuff running backs that are available. I don't want to be drafting wide receivers there just in general. And if I'm forced to pick one, it's not going to be Jalen McMillan, who I can't rely on once I get to that point. I know like he had those 8 touchdowns and he was really good at the end of the year, but that's an unsustainable touchdown rate. I would not expect that to continue in the second year. There's other players around him who have immediate roles. Like, say what you want about Cedric Tillman, but he's the starting X wide receiver for the Browns right now. He has opportunity right now. Romeo Doubs, same thing. He's the starting X wide receiver for the Packers. He has immediate opportunity. Adam Thielen, who's come up on this show before, who's proven us wrong year in and year out. Can he do it again? He's probably the wide receiver 2 for the Panthers as their slot receiver next to Tetairoa McMillan and has immediate opportunity. I would just rather be drafting those players than Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, you love a McMillan, you hate a McMillan. Wyatt is split on the McMillan train, but I'm not split on my fading of one of our. It seems every year there's always a reason people love Garrett Wilson. I get it. He's fun. He gets a lot of targets, a great target share. Yay, Garrett Wilson, you get all the targets on a bad team. And I'm not convinced that the Jets are going to be good. I'm also not convinced that the pass volume is going to be there. We know with Justin Fields, we talked about consolidation. I think that's the argument in favor, and that's why Garrett Wilson has been built up. Is like, who else? We talked about Lazard, last week, kind of jokingly as the wide receiver too, but he's still there and had some good weeks. But Justin Fields, as the quarterback, hasn't thrown for more than 2,500 yards in any season. Yes, part-time for 2 seasons, but even when he was a top 5, top 10 quarterback, it's not there. A barely 61% completion percentage in his 2 seasons as a starter. So not accurate, not proven to be a good passer. My concerns are that, yes, Garrett Wilson is just going to continue to be a wide receiver 20, wide receiver 24, wide receiver 18, and he's being drafted at wide receiver 13, even higher sometimes. So when you're talking about early plays, like, yes, Wilson's going to get the targets. I'm conceding that. That's the strongest argument for him. Second argument for him would be the college connection. Fields has thrown to Wilson before. The chemistry is there, but you already have a really strong target share that we're projecting. So I feel like I don't want to double count that just through a different lens. I'm not convinced that the Jets will be a good offense. They might be. They might surprise a little bit. But if they can't move it outside of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, we're gonna see a lot of drives stunted. So I'm concerned that he's not going to pay off, especially wide receiver 13.
You can't make me hate Garrett Wilson. This is one where we're going to fight a little bit because you brought up the reasons why I think we should be in and on. College connection with the quarterback, highly condensed to him. There's nothing around him. It's basically him and Breece Hall. Really high target share. Yeah, I don't think they're going to have a high pass volume, but when you get 35% of that pass volume, that's plenty of targets. And I think he's a very talented player. I think that Justin Fields showed some growth last year with Pittsburgh too. So I actually think he's going to be a little bit of a better passer moving forward than he has been in the past. We saw DJ Moore have his best season in the NFL with Justin Fields. Like, I don't know what the concern is for Garrett Wilson, really, unless you just think that like Garrett Wilson won't ever actually live up to the expectations we place on him as a talent. But I think he does have that talent. I think he's going to show out with Justin Fields.
So, I had Wilson projected for 28% target share, which, fine, 28%. But I decided just for kicks, like, what if
Rookie
I put
numbers?
What if I put him at 32? Like I just for figuring it out.
A more appropriate number.
Wilson is still wide receiver 20 in the projections, even with a 32%. So
I feel like we're fudging some numbers over there.
Okay. So tell me where I'm, wrong. We're at 1,000 yards receiving, 90 receptions, 160 targets, 6.5 touchdowns. It's the Jets. Like, we can't be too aggressive here.
I do think that it will be more efficient than what you're giving him. for sure with Justin Fields. I think we have proof of concept with DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore and Garrett Wilson are on similar planes in terms of talent. I think this can happen again for Garrett Wilson. In fact, I think it'd be better for Garrett Wilson because Garrett Wilson's been a better target earner, I think, recently compared to DJ Moore.
I agree. He has earned more targets, but I believe in the offense more. So that's how we're ending it.
I'm taking DJ. I'm drafting both. Don't get me wrong, but Garrett Wilson, baby.
This is why man versus machine is the show you want to be tuning into every week. We schedule it Wednesday nights, so make sure you're tuning in to Player Profiler Now channel. That's right, man versus machine. There we go. Wyatt, any words for the people before we sign out tonight?
Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Be back next time.
Smash the subscribe button, peeps. Till next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everybody.